You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Okay, I'm here with Sophia Spallino. Welcome, Sophia, to the podcast. So glad to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be here, Jessica. Thank you for having me. So excited to chat with someone who geeks out about the same things that I do.
Amazing. Yes, we were having a really great chat just before we started recording, and both of us having a bit of a background in marketing. We've definitely got some like-minded thoughts, I think, and I can't wait to dive into this discussion today around AI, especially because your specialty is in personal branding. And I think that to me, I'm like straight away, my mind is just pinging with all of these things about how incredible and how important this discussion is when AI is increasing in the world to really kind of start to think about your personal brand. But before we dive into that, because I know you're like, yes, let's go. Please, can you tell us a little bit about, what you do in your business and who you serve so that everybody else can catch up to where we got to?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Sophia Spallino. I'm 31 years old, and I'll tell you a few random facts about me. I play the concert grand harp, which is not something you hear everyone say. And I have music that accidentally went viral, and that's one fun facet of my diamond. As I say, when you have a personal brand, you got to have a few facets that you share with the world. That's one of them. The second thing is I am very proud lesbian because I came out super late in life, only a few years ago. So I'm so loud and proud about that. And it's a huge part of my personal brand. And I'm extremely spiritual. I believe in divine love, universe, God, Jesus, all the things, whatever you want to call it. I just love knowing that it's not just me out here on the floating rock trying to figure it all out on my own. For me, that's grounding, and it feels safer for my nervous system to be like, oh, it's not just me. So it's like me and God. I got a good business partner there. And I help women build profitable personal brands, specifically really powerful soul-led women who feel like they're on a mission. They've got a big dream. They want to impact so many women. They want to help heal the world. And they just need the next right steps to take strategy-wise to get there. And I'm able to give it to them. And beyond strategy, I really believe in being a woman builder. Like I'm so much more than a brand builder. I help women realize their worth and step into that. But there's a lot of coaches out there who just kind of sell the fluff and motivation. And I actually provide strategy in my programs where you can actually learn how to go from literally nothing to having a full-blown brand in 6 months or less. So it is a little bit different than just going to one coach for one thing, one for another thing. The program is very all-encompassing. So that's a little summary about me.
Awesome. It's so good. And I completely agree. I think, there's so many tactics out there. The strategy is actually the thing that makes it work. And so you can choose different tactics, right? But if you don't have the strategy behind it, that's what's making them either work or not work. Like anyone can go and Google a 7-step method on YouTube and figure out how to do something. But it's like, it's not necessarily about the how, it's about all of the pieces behind it that either is like, is your message landing? Is it reaching the right people? Are they going to connect with it? That is what makes such a difference. And I think that kind of brings me even strangely on a nice segue into AI, because for me, I see that as such a real lack in AI and how people are using AI and what AI literally cannot do for you that humans can do. And that is that kind of connection, like really understanding who it is that you're speaking to and using kind of the language and the non-language communication as well to communicate properly. But let me know what you think. This is, you've come here to share with us. I'd love to know. Give us the high level, and then we can dive in. What do you see in this world of AI, and why is it so important to look at it in a different way?
I tell people, like, what do you want? The good news or the bad news first? Because either way, let's just get the bad news out of the way.
Yeah.
The bad news is AI is coming, and it's coming for everyone's jobs. Doctors, lawyers, even if you do people's skincare, eventually they're going to want us to put our fingers in machines, right? And let the manicure happen. And no matter what your job is, as a service provider, no one is safe, especially people who had pretty high level jobs you went to college for it, like being a lawyer or a accountant, right? Like what is going to save you? And the only solution to living, not just thriving, but surviving and being able to give yourself a wage and a paycheck and provide for your families or be an entrepreneur for yourself is to build a personal brand where people trust you and enjoy working with you so much, no matter what, they're going to choose you over machine. Now, that's really, really hard to do, especially when we can't compete with algorithms and we can't compete necessarily our brains with the way that AI is going to eventually get to a level. The only thing that can save us is building connections, which goes back to the most fundamentals of networking. And we forget the social and social media, which is building these connections like we're creating right now by having a podcast and getting to know your audience, and they get to like us and trust us and buy from us. Like those very basic marketing fundamentals are going to be what's your survival pack for literally, if you think about it, the end of the world as we know it, because AI will come for everyone who doesn't have a profitable personal brand.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You know, it's so much about that human connection, isn't it? Like, and there are probably some jobs that are less in danger of AI than other ones. But, you know, I think that, like you were saying, it is so important to have that connection. And why? It's because of the energy. Like we're here together, we're having a conversation. There's an energy around it. Anyone listening is tuning into that energy and picking up on it. We're having a conversation that's not just a computer looking at all the information in the world on the internet and spitting something out. Like I think there's a big gap in what we call that intelligence. Like it can look at information that already exists. It can put something together and it can write it for you, but it doesn't come with any, and this is, I guess, for me, you know, the spirituality of us humans and the energy of us humans. Like it's got none of that because it's literally a computer. Like it doesn't come from any heart. You know, you're not saying something or sharing a story that has any impact or opinion because the computer doesn't have any of those. And, you know, I really think that the more we understand that gap and the difference and how to separate from it, you can kind of think, right, there's a place for AI, but there's also a really great place for where you can be and where you can leverage this difference.
Yes. And you have to take advantage of it now. I don't think it's like wait until it gets to be more of a challenge, because I'm not going to bullshit people. It's like building a brand does take some time. So it's important that you start now to be someone who differentiates themselves, be an icon in your industry. So that way no one's just running to the easiest, quickest, cheapest solution. And they see the difference in quality. And like you said, that connection, there's no spiritual connection. And I can read something that AI wrote and just be like, ugh, I hate it. But here's the thing, like in 5 years, will it be able to pull so much information about me and speak from my voice? That's scary. Like there's a possibility, right, of it getting to that point. It's getting closer and closer every day. So that's why us as humans have to really differentiate ourselves now and make people aspire to want to work with you. You want to have that celebrity energy where people are like, oh my God, I got to get on a call with Jessica today. And it was so impactful because Jessica's the best in her industry. And that kind of conversation needs to be happening now. So your value's there and you're not having to prove it and prove why you're more valuable than the computer, even though we know you are. But that's why we have to build that now, that authority.
Yeah. I agree. I think, you know, there may be some people listening who are thinking, well, I'm just me, you know, I'm not the best, I'm not anything special, and all of those kind of thoughts that people have going on in their heads. So, you know, what do you say to somebody who's thinking, well, you know, there are some who can be like that and, you know, who have a platform and can get out there and share their thing. But what if I'm just average me and, you know, that there isn't anything special? What do you say to somebody who's sitting there in that place?
First of all, like, you don't need a lot of followers to make a lot of money at all. At all. I grew a large following, and at one point in my life, before I knew how to sell, before I knew sales psychology, before I had a real strategy, I was making less than $4,000 a month, even with 200,000 followers at the time. I had friends who had less than 5,000 followers. Okay. So I had 200,000 friends who had less than 5,000 followers making 20K months because they were doing high ticket coaching. Like what you and I both know is very, very powerful, and closing very large containers with clients or reoccurring income that was pretty high level. So it's not about that. Also, as I believe you know, Jessica, people don't connect through highs. Like if I got on here and I just started the call with, well, hi, I'm Sophia and I make $15,000 to $50,000 every month, that might not be a very authentic connection. But if I could say, like, I'm a lesbian and I left my ex-boyfriend, who is a very famous millionaire, to live my truth, and I left with nothing. I left with less than 10,000 American dollars in my account. I worked for him. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was doing social media strategy for brands we know and love, and under NDA for different people in politics and music. So I couldn't use their reviews. I couldn't use any. I left with nothing. Like I thought that's it. Like I have nowhere to go. Everything I did under him, and I made it. And so that story that I tell over and over and over again to build my personal brand, that story of pain has connected me to more people. So all of us, no matter who you are, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm anybody. I don't know who's going to listen. If you can start with a story that you could tell your hero's journey from A to Z, how you got there, and how maybe you experienced something that was really awful, but you help people go from A to Z without experiencing that thing, then you will be able to sell whatever you're doing. You'll be able to sell whatever experience you have. It could be expertise where you've actually got the degree, you've got the knowledge, the background. It could just be the experience, but God gave you a purpose. And it's your job to share your story. And if you could share from a very humble place of, I came from this and this happened, people stop and listen. I have clients who it's their first video and they go viral because we structure it properly. So everybody's got a story. What's your story? I want to hear it in a nutshell. Like what's your quick, like, I just gave you mine.
Well, I have a couple of stories actually. One is like the big why I'm even here, the personal brand story. My story was I spent 20 years building the career that I thought that I wanted to get the job that I wanted, which was to be chief marketing, and I got there. I got right up to the top. I was there and I just went, you're kidding me. Like, this is seriously it. Like, where to from here? I mean, I was working for a listed firm. It was still a small business. So it wasn't, I'd worked for some huge global multinational corporations in the past, but this was a smaller business. But I still actually felt like I didn't even really have autonomy over my role. Like, when do I get this? Like, seriously, what do I have to do? Like, I mean, it was just so frustrating. I was like, I could give so much more. I've got all these ideas and I couldn't still be the runner, like drive my own ship or whatever. I was like, what? This is crazy. And then looking at the CEO and the lifestyle, it's like work came first. Hardly saw the kids, always traveling, always in the office, kind of patting people on the back if they were there at 6 a.m. And I was like, just because you're in the office at 6 a.m., that doesn't mean that you're amazing. That just means that you're in the office. Like, they might be sitting there doing some shopping on Amazon or whatever. Like, that doesn't mean that they're a great employee. Like, to me, my team, I was always like, look, as long as you're doing your job, I don't care how many hours you're here in the office, how many you work from home, what you're doing. Like, you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. Like, you do not need a pass from me to do that, because that is just a waste of time and irrelevant. Like, get in, get your job done. If you can get it done in a shorter amount of time, good, great for you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you sitting in the office just trying to waste time away. So I just had all that frustration pent up, literally. And
you wanted freedom. You were like,
I was like, that is it. I'm out. I've, had my second child. And I said to you before I started, this business was actually not my first business. I had a side hustle. So I'd already tried to get out. 2010, I started my first online business. and with the dream of kind of getting out, but then kept progressing the career. And it was sort of like, the side hustle was a side hustle. It really was. It was like this thing that I had on the side that I was almost a bit embarrassed to talk about. I was just sort of toddling along in my own time here and there doing some things, and it was making money, but it was never enough for me to quit my job.
Right.
And it had to get to that point of like, I literally cannot stand this anymore. Right. I was going on maternity leave anyway, so I thought I'm going to build a business while I'm on maternity leave, and then I'm not going back to the job. And
brilliant.
Yeah, pretty much that's what I did. Of course, there's a lot more things in there. There's the roller coaster because I got cold feet at the end of maternity leave. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready to do this full time. I've got this secure job. It's a very well-paid executive level job. It'd be crazy not to go back there and start getting that salary again. And I went back for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, because we entrepreneurs do crazy things.
I went back and I kind of needed the universe to just slam it in my face and go, what are you doing? It was a pretty terrible, like I was bawling my eyes out. I had all sorts of things. The company, which, I know it was all working in my favor so that I'd be here today, but they, male industry in IT, they were like, well, we don't think that a mother with kids who wants to kind of work part-time, was 4 days, but I was doing my full-time job in that time. We don't think you have a place in the executive team. We want you to take a demotion. And I'm like, you've got to be joking me. That was the thing that hit me, right? So I was like, I'm out. Yeah, that's it. We're done.
Yeah, there's like no reward. There's no reward for motherhood. I think like I am so go, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad that there's one day I know there's a future me that is going to be like, well, people still value my work if I slow down a little bit, right? To like be in that mother role. And as successful as I am, Jessica, I'm going to tell you guys all a secret. All I want is a partner and a family. Like I have all the success, I have the freedom, but now my next step is manifesting the partner and the family. So I feel like you got it all.
Oh, well, it was like, I think it was that moment where you think time is passing by so fast. And if I don't stop and actually enjoy this right now, like what am I even doing this for? Why am I in this job working my butt off for some future that I think I need when it's like, I've got this stuff right now. Yeah, sure, I might want a better house. I might want to live in a better place. I might want other things and more, but I like be grateful for what I have right now, and that was that moment. I was like, I've already got a beautiful son. I wasn't seeing enough of him. It was heart-wrenching to be leaving him at childcare, going into the office and, and feeling like my priorities were really stretched in both directions. But, I was very committed to my job and I performed, my team, everything was growing, but they couldn't see because I'm a part-time working mom with this hat on, I'm in a box. And, I just thought, well, that's ridiculous. You can be successful. You can have a business or a job, be successful, be a great parent. But for me, it was about, I want to actually be in control. I don't want to ask someone for annual leave. I don't want to ask them if I can go and pick up my kid early. Like, no. I'm older than that now. I can run my own life. Sorry, and so I think that's the thing, isn't it? And being able to find that balance. And that's why I think you and I, you already mentioned it, but why I'm so much about, it is about the strategy. You don't need a big audience. You don't need to be hustling all the time. No. It actually is easy to make that 6-figure, even 7-figure income, but start with 6. You don't have to straight away go, how am I making millions of dollars? Replace your salary, but you can do that in really minimal amount of time, as in, you can work school hours or even less than school hours if you've got your strategy in place, because you don't need a lot of people.
No, you don't. To have high ticket sales, you don't need a lot of people. You need very little clients. It's all about how you structure it. How you structure your offers. I mean, we could get into that, but I don't know where exactly your audience is. Like, are they wanting that high level conversation, or are they kind of like they want to know the beginning basics? What do you think they're in the mood for today?
That's a good question. We tend to take it a bit of everywhere, to be honest. But I think if you've got something that you're like, well, I feel really called to share this today.
Yeah. Okay. Let me do it.
Because I think that it happens for a reason, right? That's the reason why the thought popped into your head.
No, and So I know, like, in order for me to have the freedom and to be a mother one day, it's so important that I'm structuring my business now to be scalable. So what that looks like is creating offers that, one, are so fun for me and don't feel like work. It's in the zone of genius. It feels very easy for me. And other people look at me and just think, wow, because it's not easy for them. And every one of us has a little piece of that magic where something comes really easy to you. It's the thing all your friends call you for, and that's how you know what you're meant to do. And then you monetize that and you charge people who aren't your friends, your internet friends. You make a lot of internet friends, you charge them. And the best way to do it is to have a high ticket program where you either have a couple high ticket clients, or you structure where you have a very large group program, like a mid ticket that's very easy to sell. And that's how I've structured mine. Now, there's so many different structures out there. You could do like a very volume based. I mean, I love high ticket because I believe in the transformation that I provide so much that it's so cool to see someone invest and then they take the action on the strategy. I find in times when I give things away for free or I do very low ticket, they won't get the results because it's not enough of an energetic exchange.
Yes, they're not invested enough in it. And even though the content might be great, I think that they're kind of only on the surface,
Yes.
and not taking it deep enough.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I've scholarshiped a few women into the program, and maybe 1 out of my 3 scholarships has really just blown up. The other ones, they don't show up for the calls, right? So it's interesting how that works. And I wish it weren't that way. But when we invest as humans, we have this energetic exchange and we go all in on it. And so kind of like you with the job, you had to like burn the ships. You had to go all in, or your side hustle would have forever stayed your side hustle and made side hustle money. And I'm here for like, whoa, woman wealth, like, whoa. Yeah. And you have to go all in. And when you're ready, you decide, do you want to have a scalable group opportunity for people, or is the way that you help people better one-on-one? And if you want to start in the easiest way, one-on-one VIP, I started with an offer for $5,000 a month for very, very, very close on the go. You had all access to me on Voxer, and I just kept building and building and building from there. Yeah. And to get the reviews, that's the next thing. People are like, well, how do you just charge people thousands of dollars? So if you're thinking that right now and you're like, Jessica, Sophia, how do you just get people to pay you that much money? It's all about having social proof. So if you can start with like a smaller offer that's super inexpensive just to start, get some reviews, get some social proof, some screenshots, then you release your true offer. And boom, it's magic. It's crazy. It feels like you're like one moment, you're just like in another reality.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And that's like, I said to you, I kind of had a couple of key stories. The other one was exactly that moment of actually realizing if I not scale up my offer, but if I actually go premium and instead of just trying to sell something, and usually our brains, because we've been brought up in that retail culture, we kind of think we need to charge less, or it needs to be cheap, or something really affordable so that no one gets left behind. The minute I decided, you know what, I know there'll be people who can't afford it. I know there'll be people who are left behind, but that's okay. Maybe they will soon, or they're just not my ideal client. But the minute I actually put a real value on what I did, and I charged still not, some people think it's astronomical. It's like, this was still very reasonable, extremely reasonable for the outcomes they were getting and what they were making out of it. Everything changed. It was like, it actually is easier. I found it so much easier to sell a more premium offering than it was to sell something cheap, which is crazy. You think, how is that even possible? But that's been my experience. I know that there's other people who, like you mentioned, there's so many different ways you can structure your services and your offerings. For me, I've just found high ticket being so much easier. And interestingly, because I think this is the other thing a lot of people think, is that it's got to be really intensive. Like when it's high ticket, that means it's like full on and full, and it's crazy, even though you've got less clients. It does not have to be that way. It's all about how you put it together. Like, what are you deciding to put in there? What are you deciding to make part of this? It doesn't have to be. And that's why it's so great. Like you say, you want a family, you want to set your business up so that you can have the time to actually be a mum and experience everything that you want and do what you want with your family and your kids. Well, that doesn't mean, oh, I can't do high ticket because it's too intensive. Actually, sometimes I see the lower ticket where you've got hundreds of clients in programs, even though it may be lower touch per client, it's still high touch for the business and not necessarily less time for you because you've got so many more people to be serving. It's just
100%
that way.
100%. I can speak to this because I have so many followers that even just people sharing positive outcomes in my mid-ticket coaching, we're going to have to hire someone just to check the reviews and be able to repost them because it's just so much touch, even at a mid-ticket level. So if you are listening and you're like, okay, what does she mean? It doesn't have to be so intensive. Or at least I'm assuming what you mean is you can set your offer up to be anything you want. You can decide it's a weekend with you, 1 weekend a month where you meet with a client and you have a luxury retreat and you mix spirituality with business, or maybe there is no business aspect to your training. Maybe it is just spirituality, intensive therapy, whatever that is. You get to decide, and it's beautiful experiences. I know for me, as soon as I make my next milestone income, I'm ready to invest and go with my coach on a retreat. And that's going to be very high ticket, but I know that's what I want. And I wouldn't want to go if she charged me less, because as I rise, I know it's important to keep reinvesting in myself, and it comes back tenfold every single time.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true.
You'll attract people who want to invest in themselves if you, one, invest in yourself, and two, value yourself. And if someone wants cheaper, they're not your ideal client, one. And I only want to work with people who want women to be fully supported. Why would you expect my offer to be cheaper? The transformation that we provide is impeccable. So why would you want it to be cheaper?
Well, that's right.
Yeah, so you sell. So as a service provider, you're selling get up and go. You're selling, I wake up and love my life. I am healthy. I have a great relationship. I have a great business. I have more money. Whatever it is for you, you're selling health, wealth, love, freedom, peace at the core of it. So if you can give people that transformation, then why wouldn't they pay for that? Because that adds so much exponential value to their lives. You are a multiplier. Whoever's listening to this, know that's my word for 2024, multiply. You are created to multiply. And if you can multiply someone's life, you deserve to get paid very well for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like that, you mentioned it before as well, the whole quality thing. If you're putting a price tag on your stuff that is of a lower value, you're not necessarily valuing it. They're not valuing it. Are you really wanting to attract people in who are after a lower quality, lower value thing? Because what is their expectation and where are they prepared to go to? Are they even prepared to do the work to get the outcome? And, often you do find that's not the case, right? You mentioned before, you gave away scholarships, and I've done that too. And I actually stopped doing it because I think I needed to figure out a way that I could give that actually had a real positive impact, because exactly the same thing happened. I gave away a scholarship and they didn't even show up. It was
100%.
It was like, oh, wow, I really wanted it. They applied, they went through all the steps. I gave it to them and then bang, it was worth nothing apparently. And I went, that is not the purpose of me doing this. I actually really wanted to help someone who needed help. And who needed, who was really committed. But, I've got to figure out a different way of doing this, because clearly when they don't pay attention. And
oh, that's good. When they don't pay attention. I love that.
I can't claim it was original. I'm sure I've heard it somewhere before, but it's stuck in my head. And I'm like, that's on repeat in my head. If they don't pay attention. So
it's so good. No, I had mystery illness the past couple years, especially as I came out, left, started over from the ground up with nothing. I think I just put my adrenals into fatigue, very just gotten bad relationships, felt pretty abandoned by certain family for a long time. Whenever I came out, it was just intensive emotionally and financially. I freaked out. It was horrible. And we could never figure out what it was. So I ended up hiring, once I started making more money, I hired a nutritionist, a concierge nutritionist, and she's transformed my life. But I pay her $3,000 every 6 months for her to check in with me weekly. And I have to report with pictures what I'm eating. And without paying that $3,000, that energetic exchange, I'd still be eating gluten. I'd still be really, really sick. I wouldn't have gone through the intensive gut health protocols that she's put me through. I would have never stuck with that on my own, right?
Yeah.
I needed a coach to check in with every day for her to look at it. You know what's crazy? It's leaked into every area of my life because she knows. She knows if I'm back in a toxic relationship because she can see what I'm eating with the ex-girlfriend. She'll be like, oh, you're at her house again. I can see the lobster on the island. And I'm like, yeah, and so it's made me second guess and think every area of my life. I need to sharpen up all these things. And I hired her as a nutrition coach, but she's cleaned up every area of my life. So just know, like, when you invest in yourself and you pay attention. And I've been paying attention. I can walk upstairs. Just a year ago, I was out of breath, couldn't get upstairs, didn't know what was going on with my heart rate, rashes all over my body, using the bathroom like 8 times a day. And now I have a normal gut and am healthy. I can stand for long periods of time. I didn't know if I'd be able to have a baby. Now I'm planning to have a baby. Like, it's been so much healing. When you pay attention. So it's so good.
Yeah. And like, your coach was really acting as a mirror, right? To you, because otherwise we're just here stuck in our own bodies looking out. And it's like, when that coach is there, she's mirroring back to you, like, actually what it is that you're doing and what are you seeing. But luckily, because it's the mirror, you can see the blind spots. You're like, oh my goodness, and stuff that you're not even aware of or paying attention to. I think that is totally the value that you were getting there, which is amazing. Now,
it is.
I wanted to ask you around, we began the conversation around AI and personal branding. Did you have any like top do's or don'ts when we're thinking about your personal branding, and we're also thinking about, well, how am I going to survive in this world of AI? What is it that we should do? And I think, you've probably got quite a few, and I think you mentioned one already around, how it's the writing, how AI is sort of writing in your voice and it's getting faster. I'm always like, oh my goodness, if I see supercharge anywhere, I'm straight away thinking the computer wrote that.
Yes.
That wasn't a person. No one's actually saying that anymore because we all know that AI is saying it. But are there any do's and don'ts, do you think, to really create a personal brand that you're like, well, this is going to be a powerful personal brand, not just a personal brand like everybody else?
The first thing is leveraging your story, and you get tired of hearing it, saying it. You get tired of, if you have negative people in your life, they'll say, oh, you just feel like you must be such a victim because you share this story. And it's like, bullshit. I just use everything. I believe I profit from every pain in my life. So I will share everything, new, old. I wait till it's healed because I've learned the hard way. So what not to do is don't share. Yes. Wait until the wound is closed before you share it. That's where I've made my mistakes, but just always be sharing. And it's having a perfect blend of sharing personal with sharing service, because you need to always be selling as you share personal things. For years, I made my life a reality show essentially, and I wasn't making money. All I would have had to do was have just the slightest bit of a profitable personal brand strategy.
Yeah.
And things would have been so different. I just didn't know. I didn't know how to weave in selling. So what I'd want to see from you is every day, not only share like your main story somehow in some way on some platform, having that omnipresent marketing strategy where you're everywhere all at once. And you might be thinking, Sophia, how? Like, that's so hard. That is where we do use technology. You can leverage an assistant, sure, but you want to have technology that repurposes content across platforms. This is something that I teach in my program, super easy to get set up. And just start by sharing in one place and have it go everywhere. And that way you are hitting every place at once so you can grow more aggressively. And then you can start on, okay, I'm going to do an Instagram strategy, a TikTok strategy. But in the beginning, just pick one. Just pick one And like we were talking earlier, like we both have YouTube channels that we just put things there for now because it's omnipresent. Like we might as well be there, but that's not our focus. That's not where our energy is. And that's okay. We aren't computers. We are humans and we just do the best we can. But the first thing is tell your story, distribute it everywhere, and figure out exactly what you're meant to do. Because the thing that's going to separate you from anybody else and what's going to give you an iconic brand is the conviction in your heart that you were put on the planet to do this thing, to share this thing. It's going to be conviction and devotion. Devotion, because being an entrepreneur, it has challenges. And so if you stay devoted, it's not being consistent. It's not just having a strategy. It is true, deep devotion to the one that you serve. And I know for me with a Christian background, which is so funny because when I came out, the church was not so kind to me, right? So I left all that behind. It was like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with that. But lately I've been studying the words of Jesus again. And what's so interesting to me is like Jesus left the whole flock to go get the one. And I want people to think about it this way. If you're not a Jesus person, cool. You are looking for the one when you're dating. I'm looking for the one. If you're like the future wifey listening right now, hit me up. Looking for the one. We're all looking to speak to the one in our marketing. And if we are devoted to helping this one, where it was like, you know what? I'm not here to speak to everybody. I'm here to speak to this one ideal client who needs me to solve this problem. Like, what will happen if she doesn't have this sorted out? What's going to happen? Like, where would she be? She needs this in her life. If you could be that convicted about what you're meant to do and that devoted, you're going to show up every single day and you're going to reach her. So be thinking about the one. Don't think about reaching everybody. That's like a very old mindset where there was no internet, right? But like most of my clients, like 80% are lesbians. I'm so happy to help straight women, like so happy to do it. But most of my clients are 80% are lesbians because they see themselves in me. And so I thought, well, I want to help all women who have been told they can't, because that's one thing. Like as a queer woman, I was told you can't be gay. You're too pretty. You're too feminine. You're too all this bullshit. Yeah. It's so crazy. I'm like, no, like I know I'm gay. I've known since I was 5. And I've had to like convince myself like not to listen to this for so many years and tried to pray the gay away and all these things. And when I could finally accept it, it's like, okay, now if I look at myself and I go chase her as my one client, or even someone who felt like they've been marginalized, they've been told they can't, if I can look for the characteristics that were me 2 to 20 steps behind, because that's your ideal client. They're 2 to 20 steps behind where you are, and you're just helping them get there, no matter what your service is, right? Like that's going to make all the difference. So I hope that gives you some hope out there.
What a great, and like I just wanted to touch on those 2 points as well, because I think there is so much gold in that, and I don't want anyone to kind of go away without really having it land for them. But think about the difference in how you're speaking when you're talking to a really good friend, like they're your mate. You know them so well. You know their background. You know the struggles that they're going through. You know where they are right now, and you just think about how you talk to them and how passionate you are when you're talking and relating. Like you're from the heart. You're not in your head thinking about, okay, well, now I've got to put in this framework about how I speak. Like forget that. Like you're literally talking to them. And I think that is the real difference. When you're saying talk to the one, it's like you're talking to someone you know very, very well. And it is one person. Like forget about, you're not on a stage, even though you think, oh, I'm on the internet, that means I'm talking to all these people and, some of them aren't quite the same and I've got to moderate this. No, forget it. Like talk to the one that you like. I see you in the audience, you're shining out. That is the one that I'm talking to, because when you speak to them and it's that direct and that depth of passion coming out from you, even if someone's not 100% fitting, like you say, you've got 20% of your clients who aren't lesbian, they are still connecting to you. They're still connecting to what you're saying because everything else is relevant. There's this one bit that's not, it's like, that doesn't even matter. They don't care, right? It's like the other percentage of everything else that you're sharing is hitting them 100%. And they're like, that is me. And for whatever other reason, they might be feeling misunderstood or being told that they can't for other reasons. It might not be about their sexuality. It might be about other things. Like there's a million things that we get told, right?
Exactly.
I'm like, there's so much judgment and everything. So they're relating to that. They're relating to you on that
100%.
level.
The way I see it is like we all go to the movies and we get into a movie, we watch the movie and we start seeing ourselves in the main character's shoes. Even though I've never like saved the planet from like a galaxy war, I will end up putting myself there. So how can you just, like you said, talk like you're talking to a friend, and it's like you're on FaceTime. That is how I want you to show up in your content. When you say, forget the framework, just be yourself. Yes, be yourself. And whenever I talk about framework for people, it's like the framework doesn't have to be hard. It's literally hook your audience in, heart, the heart, tell your story, always sell up from service. Give your free gifts or give them a call to action to somehow communicate with you or to work with you. But the sell doesn't have to be hard. It could just be like, if you need to talk about this more, let's chat. My DMs are open. Like, don't overthink this.
Exactly.
It's telling your story as if you're on a FaceTime call. And there are like a billion different frameworks out there.
Yeah.
And it comes
frameworks are good for learning something, right? I'm like, frameworks break something down and go, this is kind of how it works. So you go, oh, that makes sense now. And I think as well, then you can learn it through the framework. But it's like, as long as you're staying then in your head and in the framework and not speaking from your heart, that's where the disconnect happens, right? So it's like, learn it, use the framework. They're bloody brilliant. That's what I use for everything in my program. There's a framework for everything because it makes it simple. It breaks it down. Your logical brain can understand what we're doing. And then when you start applying it, it's like, now you know that you've got this. You don't worry, like you've learned it. You've understood it with the framework. You can now just let it roll. let it roll.
It's like learning classical music and then just putting your music stand away and just playing from your heart. Because you understand what needs to be done. And if you make a mistake, you double down on it and you play that note again and no one's going to know. No one's going to know. So that is exactly it. Confidence. Nobody knows as long as you're confident. You got to believe in yourself before other people believe in you. And when you do, they will.
Yeah. And I thought the other point that you said just before, which I think is a really good one just to bring up a little bit again, is about not sharing when you're in the messy middle of, waiting till you've got to the end. And 100%, I think this is actually something a lot of people don't necessarily understand or realize. And I see a lot of it out there. So I thought, yes, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
Because, like the difference. Well, you think about, everyone's saying be vulnerable and share your stuff and all of that. But it's like when you're sharing your story in the middle of it happening as it's unfolding, you just offloading. It's kind of like you're using your audience like your therapist. And you don't actually have any value to share with them yet because you're not out the other end and you don't have the insights yet. You haven't got the lessons yet. You're kind of just sharing the mess that you're going through. And to me, I'm like, that's a really great, I love that you said, please wait till you got to the end. And it's because of those lessons, right? How powerful are they when you share the story, but then you end it and close it with the lessons that you've learned and being able to link it back into a thread that then makes sense in terms of your business. It's not like, not every story that you might have in your whole life is relevant to talk to about with your audience, and that's up to you how much you want to share of just like random shit going on in my life and then stuff that has a thread into your business. But the stuff that sells is like where there is a connection and a thread and a reason for telling that story. And I love that you said, please wait till the end. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say, like any examples or something around that?
I recently shared a breakup like a few months ago, and I didn't realize like how, even though it didn't work out, I never wanted to hurt her heart, even though I was hurt, and I deeply actually regret that because it made a person feel like they were just a cog in the wheel of my business. And that's not the truth. I was sharing my pain in real time, which was something I had always done. And of course, I'm always going to profit from my pain. That is something that I live by and will always live by. But I could have waited and processed it longer and given her time to process it longer. And I know why I did what I did. I had a big masterclass coming up and I didn't know how I couldn't be honest with my audience because I was like in the depths of despair and they're used to seeing me show up every day.
Yeah.
So while I'm upset, I'm also like, you know what? I was the most authentic that I could be. But now I know if this ever happens again where I go through that, I will put on my big girl pants and no one needs to know until I've extracted that lesson like you've shared because it was just too painful in that moment for her, for me. And looking back, I look at myself and I actually lost one client through it. I had one mid-ticket client and she said, and this is so vulnerable to share. I've never shared this actually. She sent me a message and she said, because of how you shared your breakup, I don't want to work with you. And I said, that's fair. Just know that I'm teaching building a personal brand, but like totally respect your decision. Now, this was an all-in client who had made thousands of dollars, gotten crazy results with me. And it hit in the heart because I was already grieving so much that week. And she had already told me, yes, I'm ready to re-sign on. And then she pulled back. But you know what? That's her listening to her soul. And I think what happens when we share too soon is we make people, they can sense our lack of stability, our lack of grounding, our lack of rooted down in our root chakra. So I'm not saying to be inauthentic. I'm just saying wait until that pain is healed so you could talk about it from a healed place. And I know I would have been able to retain that client. And like, I'm still so wish her the best and never, like, there's no hard feelings. It was a lesson for me. It was a lesson for me. And I'm glad I got to share it. I never thought I'd say that out loud, but it was like break up, then stab in the heart from the client.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but it is ironic, isn't it? That like, that was probably the lesson being given to you, right? By the world is like, hey, maybe this isn't the best way to share stories. And that was a really powerful lesson that you learned through that experience is like, what you've just shared now, you're like, no, I'm going to wait until the end.
It was.
And until, it may not even happen, like something might have happened. You don't know actually when that insight or that download or that perspective is going to actually land for you, because I think it took me about 2 years to talk about when I left my job because I was so upset. I was so caught up in all of this stuff around it. And like, my confidence was shattered around it ridiculously because it's like it took away nothing from me. Like I've got, and it only opened up doors, right, for this new world of entrepreneurship.
You couldn't see it yet.
But at the time, it was shameful. I was so ashamed, and I didn't actually have anything to share that wouldn't have made me sound like a complaining, like small-minded little prat, to be fair. And I just thought, I didn't have a good way of sharing the story. I'm like, I don't want to be a martyr. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but I want to help people who are in that situation. I want to help them feel empowered. And actually, everybody going through it actually feels like it's just them. They're like, there's something wrong with me. It's about me. It's like, look, ladies, if you're in that situation, if there's something going on, it is not you, it is rife. And as soon as I shared that story, so many people came to me, random strangers, messaging me saying, oh my God, I went through this and that. And, they were all relating to it because it is so common. And that really made me think, gosh, that's so sad that it is that common. Like I was hoping I would help a few people, but to feel like almost every, I'd say a massive percentage of women who have become mothers in the workplace have experienced some form of having the maternal wall put up around them and being placed in a box simply because they became a mother. And I was like, I want to change that. And I want to help people, women in particular, to have freedom, have all of the things. You can be a mum, you can be successful, you can make money, and it's not going to, they're not all compromises that you have to make on each other. Like you say, you want to help women actually be wealthy and to really step into their own. It's exactly the same, my purpose as well, because why the hell shouldn't we? I just don't care. I refuse to be stuck in that box that other people want to put those walls around, because it's, says who's making up the rules here anyway.
And I love what you said about women connecting. You didn't realize how many would connect. And what I see is people connect through pain. before they're going to connect to you being a successful entrepreneur now, or the fact that you took the risk. Like, people probably connected to that story above anything. So for anyone listening and you're like, I just want to start building my personal brand, what story can you tell of where you've overcome something to get to where you are, and that get to where you are in the way that you help people?
Yeah.
What story is that for you, and can you share it? And whenever you write it out, I want you to repurpose it in so many different ways. Don't just write out the story for a caption or a blog or a podcast outline. Use it for all three, and then turn that into a script, and then put that as a copy under a B-roll post. Like, think of all the different ways that you can recycle this one bit of copy, and you've done the work for 5 days of posting in one day. And then you spread that out over the course of the next month. And it's like, wow, I got all my Monday posts done. Yay. It doesn't have to be hard. It needs to come from your heart. That is what's going to make it feel easier. There's no easy in entrepreneurship, but there is easier, and it's got to come from your heart.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I think, really the theme that we're hearing today is around your stories, and actually, really understanding what your story is, what your powerful stories are, and starting to lean into them is a huge building block of your personal brand, because it's how people connect with you. And that leads us into why we need it in this world of AI. That's what AI lacks, right? They don't have a personal story. They don't have all of these things that are relatable, that help people to feel like that person understands, they get me on that level that really draws them to you. And I think that's something AI can never have.
Never. It's just the way we love certain doctors, because they take more time with us. At least, I don't know how it is for you, but in America, the healthcare system just really sucks. So if a doctor takes more time with you, I'm not just going to go to where the doctor's the cheapest. I'm going to go where that doctor makes me feel seen and loved and cared for. And that's what's going to set you apart in the world of AI, because it is coming, but we don't have to be afraid. We need to just get better at branding ourselves. And that starts with your story. That starts with conviction. That starts with showing up on camera confidently and knowing you're the solution to the one's problem, whoever the one is for you.
Yeah, love that. Now, if anyone's wanting to connect with you and dive into more of your content and see how you're doing it, like you walk your talk, you put your story out there, you do all the things that you've been talking about today. So where can they best find you and connect with you?
Instagram is my jam. I would love to see you there. It's at Sophia Spallino, Sophia Spallino, Spallino like spaghetti. And I'm super Italian lesbian entrepreneur. And on TikTok, that's where I have a huge audience. I built this crazy brand there. I keep it super fun and light and personal on TikTok. Same handle, Sophia Spallino. And I have a podcast called Social Equity. It's so great. It's where I pump you up every single Monday morning. Go subscribe now. It's a little kick in the butt that you need it. And if you're listening and you're like, okay, what you're talking about makes sense, I want to be in the program, just DM me on Instagram. Tell me you heard the podcast. Tell me you're curious about it. I'll tell you more about it, and we'll see if you're a good fit. The DMs that's where I hang out.
Yeah, amazing. I'll make sure all of that stuff is linked up in the show notes. So if you didn't quite get it down, or if you're driving, don't have a pen, it's all good. Just drop down into the show notes and you can find Sophia on those platforms. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sophia. This has been such an amazing chat. I know that we would have plenty more that we could talk about, but I'm conscious of time and of everybody else's time as well. And I value yours particularly. So I appreciate you joining today and sharing so much as well.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. And I love what you're teaching. I just want to affirm you, because so many women need to have this strategy, and they are moms, and they need to know how to make lots of money and make it in less time. And I think that that's so important to hear, but it's possible, and that you get to be that example for people. So thank you for shining your light.
Thank you so much. It's really kind of you. Beautiful. And thank you everybody for tuning in with us today. We loved having you here.
See you in the Instagram DMs. Bye.
Bye.